Good morning, everyone. I'm Congressman Joe Crowley. I'm the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, joined this morning by the Chair of our Democratic Caucus, Xavier Becerra, as well as the Chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Congressman Steve Israel of New York. This week marks 5 years since the minimum wage was last increased. 5 years. 5 long years. Normally, we celebrate milestones like that, but this is nothing to cheer about. This is a reminder of the harsh reality that millions of Americans, hardworking Americans, are facing across our country today. While rent is rising, utility costs are increasing, and the price of food continually goes up, wages for many families in our country are stagnant. It doesn't take an economist to understand that this isn't the way to help America's families or to lift up our middle class. But speaking of economists, even they agree that raising the minimum wage will boost the economy in a myriad of ways. That's why Democrats have unveiled our plan to jumpstart the middle class. And we've made it easy. We're not talking about concepts or ideas. What we're actually talking about is actual legislation that will help lift up America's working and middle-class families and those that are striving to be in the middle class. It will strengthen our economy and American businesses and will treat women equally. So while our Republican colleagues have decided to focus their energies on ridiculous lawsuits against our president, Democrats have legislation to create jobs, improve our infrastructure, and create an economy that works for every American. While our Republican colleagues waste millions of taxpayer dollars on pointless Benghazi hearings, Democrats have legislation to ensure equal pay for equal work and strengthen the Violence Against Women Act. And while our Republican colleagues waste time blaming their inability to get anything done on the president, Democrats have a plan to make college more affordable and give every child the opportunity to start their education off on the right foot. We Democrats, we have a plan. Our Republican colleagues, they have absolutely nothing to offer to the American people but the continued stagnation here in Washington. And that's why we need to put the middle class first and those that want to join the middle class, put middle class first. And that's why we need to jumpstart America. And with that, let me turn it over to my colleague from New York, the Chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, a leader in the field, Steve Israel.
Thank you. Thank you to my friend and my brother, Joe Crowley, and the Vice Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me an opportunity to talk about where we're going, what we're planning in the weeks, months, and years ahead. I think that the American people have had it with a Republican majority that is willing to shut down the federal government, but consistently stands up for the special interests. There is a vivid contrast between House Republicans, who are all about protecting those special interests, and House Democrats, who are all about strengthening the middle class. Our economic policy is from the middle out. Their economic policy is consistently from the top down. We've made a decision in caucus under the leadership of the Chairman Becerra, the Vice Chairman Crowley, that this August is going to be a month of action for the middle class. We're going to demonstrate that contrast every single day in August. We're going to make August a very hot month for Republicans who consistently support the special interests. Next week is going to be our launch. Next week, the Republicans are going to be spending all their time on legislation to sue the president. Our contrast will be talking about issues that really matter to the pocketbooks of the middle class. That's going to be next week. We go home after next week. Week 1 of August will be about who's got your back. And so our members are going to be in their districts talking specifically about the difference between Republicans who have the backs of the special interests and Democrats who have the backs of the middle class and those who aspire to get into the middle class. Week 2 in August will be about the contrast between Republicans who want to continue to give tax cuts to corporations to ship jobs overseas and Democrats who want to give tax cuts to corporations who will manufacture and build and create jobs here at home. Week 3 will be a contrast on the issue of affordable college and education, affordable access to education that makes America and keeps America #1. So we'll be talking about House Democrats who have legislation to allow middle-class college students in working families to refinance their loans versus Republicans who have refused to even take that bill up but consistently passed legislation to allow the biggest banks in America to refinance their loans. And week 4 will be about women. And when women succeed, America succeeds. So in week 4 of August, our members will be talking about pay equity for women. We'll be talking about access to affordable child care and paid sick leave. We'll talk about the contrast between Democrats who believe that a woman should be paid the same as a man for equal work, and Republicans who have absolutely refused to even take up that bill while guaranteeing maximum subsidies to the largest corporations and special interests in America. This is going to be about who's got your back. The difference between the two parties in this Congress is about priorities. And we're going to vividly demonstrate that our priorities are to strengthen, expand the middle class, help people get into the middle class who aren't there yet, while Republicans have only one priority, and that is supporting the special interests. Thank you, Vice Chair Crowley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield to you.
Well, we were pleased this morning to have not only our chairman, Mr. Israel, from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, present along with Mr. Yarmouth from Kentucky on how we plan to move forward and jumpstart the middle class. But the vice chair will attest that we had also a special guest speaker who talked about how so many Americans are working so hard but making so very little. People who take care of our elderly parents, who take care of our kids, who clean our homes. Those home care workers in America are struggling, yet they're doing some of the most important work for America, and that is taking care of our loved ones. And so we see the need. And at a time when throughout the world so much is going on, in fact, in America so much is going on, close to 300,000 jobs created last month alone. In the last 5 months, more than 1 million jobs created. The president working with the private sector, getting America back to work. Yet here in the House of Representatives, none of that's happening. None of that's going on. In the House of Representatives, what prevails is this shut-down, do-nothing politics that keeps us from complementing what the private sector and businesses and employers are doing to help get Americans back to work. They're fighting the president every step of the way when he has a jobs agenda, when he tries to get everyone health security through the new health security law. Here in the House of Representatives, it seems like the leadership on the Republican side is not listening to America, that they're going in the opposite direction. Americans say it's time to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour so people like those home care workers can earn a decent living. We haven't had a chance to get a vote here in the House. Americans say it's time to rebuild our roads and bridges. Put those Americans in the construction industry back to work. Here we can't do anything about patchwork measures that only take us a few months down the road. Americans throughout the country are saying it's time to fix our broken immigration system so we know who's in the country, so our economy can really expand and grow. We can create more jobs and take care of families who are being separated. And Americans here watch as in the House of Representatives, Republicans have shut down any vote on fixing the broken immigration system, even though some 390 days ago, the Senate on a bipartisan basis did its job of passing a common sense fix to the broken immigration system. You see action out there in America. You see action, so much going on in the world. And here in the House of Representatives, it's as if people are asleep at the wheel on the Republican leadership side. It's time for those who get elected to do their job. Rather than shut down and do nothing, it's time to do our job of passing stable, lasting laws that help build America's middle class. The middle class in America needs to have a jump start. That's what Democrats are about. And it won't take us 3 or 4 years to do any of those things. As Chairman Israel will attest, we want to tell the American people, and we're going to do this over the August recess, give us a chance, come next year, and we will jumpstart the middle class. within 100 days, we will do all those things that Americans say that we should do, like increasing the minimum wage, getting our industries back to work, giving women equal pay for the same work they do as a man. It's time to do this. We can do it in 100 days. We don't have to just shut down the place. We don't have to just do nothing. We can get it done. Just give us a chance. And with that, we'll take any questions. Mike.
On the border stuff, Speaker Boehner said yesterday he's not going to support anything, no money, unless there's changes to the 2008 law, and Senate Republicans seem to be saying the same thing. Is there any appetite at all for that plan in your vote?
Or in other words, Mike, you're reinforcing what I just said, that Republicans in the House are about shutting down and doing nothing, even though we have a crisis, a humanitarian crisis at the border. They're saying, no, we won't do anything. We are prepared to work with the president. The Senate has said it's prepared on a bipartisan basis to work with the Senate. I hope Speaker Boehner changes his mind and decides that it's time to do something. We can't just continue to allow children to show up at our border and have our Border Patrol having to take care of kids instead of watching the border. It's time for Republicans to stand up and recognize they have a responsibility to get things done. And so we think at the end of the day, House Republicans will think twice and hopefully join with the American people and the president and get something done.
Well, they want to do something. It's just a different something than you want to do. So do you see any compromise on the 2008 law, which seems to be the number one sticking point?
Well, they're making ultimatums when we're trying to get things done. The president didn't say, do it my way or nothing gets done. The president put out there the proposal that indicates what has to happen so that the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Justice can get this done so we take care of that humanitarian crisis. Republicans are saying, no, we won't do anything to fix the broken immigration system. There's a big difference between getting things done and playing politics. And so if the Republicans wish to pursue a political approach to this and shut down the opportunity to deal with this humanitarian crisis, then they should understand what they're doing to those kids and to the American people who want to see our broken immigration system finally work. I don't know if anyone. Yes.
Chairman Rogers told his colleagues this morning that he has a framework for the border supplemental, and he said the maximum dollar amount was $1.5 billion for the rest of the calendar year. Is that a figure that's obviously much less than the president requested? Is that a figure that your caucus would be willing to accept?
We will have to take a look at whatever they put together. Again, you can talk about resources to help the Border Patrol, to help Homeland Security do its job, to help Health and Human Services do its job. It's pretty clear cut how much it will take to get this done the right way. We are dealing with children, and so we'll take a look at the numbers. But I will tell you that playing politics is not good for anyone, not just the children who are at the border, but for Americans who are those who are interested in seeing this resolved. So we'll take a look at what the Republicans are proposing. But again, if they're going to play political shenanigans with this, they're tinkering with the well-being not just of these kids, but of our system on immigration that has to be fixed. Any other questions?
Senator Mikulski, similar to this question, is going to propose $2.7 billion, $1 billion less than President Obama wants. Do you see any problems with that figure relative to Obama's act? There was so much support for the $3.7 billion figure. People seem to think that was appropriate.
I think at the end of the day, what we need to do is address the issue, address the problem. And right now, as we continue to dither here, the problem continues to exist and is exacerbated. The American people want a solution found. They want Washington to begin to work. And quite frankly, going back to the Rogers numbers, it sounds to me on first blush that what he's done is taken a year and divided into threes, and this is the third of what they think they would need for the year. And I don't think that's really, and that's without much examination of it. To me, there is a lot of startup costs I think that may be involved in this as well, and that's what we really have to look at and really address this in terms of what is in the best interest of our nation, of the image of our country, what we want to portray to the rest of the world in terms of how we approach these issues, as well as the children that are involved in this, and that that they are treated in a humane way, and that they are adjudicated in the fastest way possible, so that we can determine whether or not they have the right to stay here or not.
And I would just add that, look, you're either going to pay the Border Patrol to do its job or you're not. You're either going to pay the administrative law judges that will be needed to process these children or you won't pay them. And that's an easy tally to come up with. It seems to me, as the Vice Chairman just said, that the House has figured out a way to just shortchange the process, which probably dooms it to failure. We'll take a look at what the Senate's doing. But clearly, what we have to do is we have to be ready to step up to the plate and get this done the right way. I don't think the president came up with some number out of the hat, and I'm not sure how phony the numbers are from the House Republicans, but we just need to get this done. And it's pretty simple what it'll take to get this done. There are a lot of folks who are working right now on the border to get this done. The last thing Congress should do is play this game of shut down, do nothing politics while people are actually trying to get this done.
So you think there will be a resolution before you leave for August recess?
There should be. There's no excuse for not doing it. That's our job. We get elected to do the business of the American people. It's not as if we're doing some heavy lifting to try to pass legislation, trying to find a bipartisan solution here. My dad used to get up very early in the morning and do road construction work where pick and shovel most of the day. Then later on, when automation came, jackhammer. You're doing hard labor in 100-degree weather. That's tough. We're dressed in suits. We get paid a lot more than my dad ever made. And if we can't solve the business of the American people who are right now working on this, shame on the House of Representatives. And so there's no reason why Speaker Boehner and the House Republican leadership can't give us a vote to do this the right way.
If I just make one other comment, maybe this is the new way to deal with crises. My experience through the whole Sandy debacle, it took months for the House to act when people were suffering. Americans in Queens and in Staten Island, and New Jersey, and in the Upper East Coast were suffering for months before the House Republicans acted. And then it was a lot of politics was involved in it as well. Maybe that's the new norm here in Washington. I thought the old norm when I first came here was you deal with the crisis first. You spend the necessary amount of money to deal with the crisis, and then you look back and determine whether or not that was the proper course or not, and we learned from that. But this is a crisis right now. This is an emergency. An emergent issue is happening on our border. It needs to be addressed. It deals with young people, children, that need to be adjudicated in the most humane way. And as well, we deal with the issue of our border. The Republicans want to just, at this point, do nothing when it comes to comprehensive reform. I think that many of us have made the argument, had we done a comprehensive bill on immigration, we wouldn't be dealing with this issue right now. But because they've did it all this time, we're now dealing with an emergency issue on our Texas border.
We'll close with that. I think that's the most important point. The Vice Chairman just said it. Had we not waited 390 days in the House of Representatives to match the Senate in passing a common sense solution to the broken immigration system, this crisis, this humanitarian crisis on the border, might have been averted altogether, or certainly would have been addressed in a much faster and comprehensive way. But right now, you can see what happens when you got a broken immigration system, and you've got this shut down, do nothing mentality, politics that pervades the House of Representatives. So we think we can get things done, and that's why we spoke earlier about it doesn't take 4 years, it doesn't take 3 years, it shouldn't even take 1 year. We can, in 100 days, we'll prove to the American people that we can get the business of the country done and jumpstart the middle class. With that, we'll thank you all for attending.